This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio!
Do you or someone you know suffer from poor circulation, shortness of breath, or chest pains? Are you looking for a more natural solution to help overcome these problems? People tell us that after just a few months taking Extendivite, their doctors have noticed unexplainable improvements in their overall health. For more information, visit heartdrop.com or call 1-877-928-8822.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
And tell them Nighthawk sent you, because if you call this number and tell them Nighthawk sent you, you'll get $5 off your first order at extendivite.com. Thank you. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at revolution.radio. And I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, with our co-host, Dr. Sasha Lessin. Producer is Thomas Becker, and today our guest is Steve Colbern. And Steve is a chemist, materials scientist with over 20 years of industrial experience and several patents for industrial processes relating to nanotechnology. He's currently working in the area of carbon nanotubes and working to start a nanotechnology company. In the UFO field, Steve does high-tech analysis of alien implants, UFO crash debris, and other physical evidence found on or around experiencers of alien contact. He was a partner of the late Dr. Roger Leir from 2008 until his death in 2014, and did an analysis on several of the implants that Dr. Leir removed from his patients, including the last three patients, 17, 16, and 15. Steve was also present at these last three implant removal surgeries. In addition to analysis, Steve is currently doing instrument scans of clients that believe they may have had alien contact for evidence of the presence of alien implants and signs of recent alien contact. So we have a lot to talk about with Steve. Before we bring Steve on, though, Dr. Lessin, what would you like to say?
I'm really interested in the implants, especially since my wife's got them.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yes. Yes. Well, his wife is me.
Do you have them, if I may ask?
I have one behind my right ear, one in my left sinus. There was something done to my right tibia when I was about 16, and it hurt. It hurt for like 3 years. I had scoop marks. There was definitely an indentation in the right tibia from, I guess they removed, you might know about that, why they take it from certain areas or why they implant you in certain areas. And then I was told by a psychic who did a cold reading on me. I never met her before, and she was describing my implants and where they were. So she identified psychically that there were several up and under the lymph nodes in the arms, the armpits. She said that those were protecting me from different diseases. She was identifying what the purposes were. The one, I think, one was for tracking. One was to help me prevent me from getting certain diseases, especially STDs when I was out dating again. So I don't know if you have that level of information, but first, let's just start by saying hi, Steve, and you might want to fill in the gaps with what I said about you. What else would you like to tell our listeners about who you are and your work in this first part here?
I'm very interested in physical evidence of the alien presence on Earth, and I've done a lot of analysis of alien implants and reported UFO crash debris, and I've got enough information at this point to speculate on the function of these items. So it's interesting you're talking about the psychic's assessment of how or what the purpose of the implants is. That's pretty close to what we thought as well. That they serve tracking disease prevention and/or medical monitoring or sensory monitoring purposes.
Right. Well, it seems they know where I am wherever I go. I'm a lifelong contact experiencer.
That's I tell everybody you can't run away from this. It's been tried, but they definitely know. We've had enough anecdotal reports to know that you can't run away from this, and they definitely know where you are at all times if you're an experiencer.
So do you have any implants, Steve?
Yeah, I've got. I remember one being put up my nose. I don't know if it's in my sinus or where it is. I can't see it on X-ray, but I know it's probably there. I'm going to try to get an MRI to try to find it, and I've got one above each ear, above the skull and below the scalp, and they're real small ones. And those are pretty typical. And the one up the nose is also pretty standard. And I appear to have one in the back of the neck, about the third vertebrae down, and that's also pretty typical of lifelong experiencers. And I had one in my toe that Dr. Leir removed, and I analyzed. I was patient number 15 in his implant removal project. And that's all that I know of. I may have others, but usually lifelong experiencers have more than one implant from what we've been seeing.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know, because I definitely have more than one. I wasn't aware of the one in the vertebrae, but I do have some problems. Do you remember getting them? I clearly remember when they put the one up my nose and the one behind my right ear. Mine is behind my right ear, and it's in two parts. And I was taken to the doctor because I came in. I was a very small, a toddler. Probably about 4 years old, and I came in and said, "Mommy, a bee stung me," but it wasn't a bee. I couldn't explain it. It was probably a little probe that was buzzing around me, and then it knocked me out, and then they took me on board the craft and did their implant install.
That sounds plausible. Well, I remember when I remember under regression when they put the toe implant and the one above my right ear in, and without regression, I remembered that I had two more implants and that they'd been there during the night. But I remembered actually them doing it when I was regressed, and I remembered spontaneously them doing the up the nose implant.
Did you have any reactions to any of your implants? I certainly did.
Well, the one that they put up my nose, I got when I was 5, and my parents said that I immediately took an interest in anything to do with space, like turning on a switch. And when they put the one on my toe, the one reaction is it gave an electric shock type pain. At first it was a weird stinging pain, and then over the next few days it developed a very really strange electric shock type pain whenever I put any weight on that toe, which I think was the nerve cells growing into the device, these things are innervated by the nervous system, and there's some chemical cue that causes the nerve cells to grow into it. And I also felt a little bit different. It's just very, very subtly, and I felt back to my old self when it was removed. It's really hard to.
How old were you when you got the toe one?
I was. See, that was in 2048, and
wow.
that was during a period of high activity after we had our third child, my ex-wife and I, and not sure why they put it in. It was I think it was a medical monitoring device, but I think they wanted to me to start an investigation and find out about these things and spread the information. They want people that are ready to hear the message to hear it, but they don't want people, the general public, to be panicked by this stuff.
Yeah, when I had my nose one done, I was about 5. Yeah, I was in kindergarten. Just started kindergarten.
That age is pretty standard too for that implant, by the way.
But I started to sneeze so bad that my mother let me stay home from school. I just could not stop sneezing. It was nonstop, and it made my nose just run horribly. And then I have chronic sinusitis. I think it was the start of my whole life kind of being unhealthy, because maybe it went bad or something. But it's just made me sick all my life with the chronic sinusitis, and then I get polyps that grow. So maybe mine was a defective model.
That particular implant is made of a conductive polymer. They told me that in one experience, and I was sent one that was put into somebody's nose and sneezed out. It didn't go up all the way into the brain, apparently. And I analyzed it, and it is made of a conductive polymer, so that was confirmation for me. That's always nice to have. And they said that the implant uses proteins from the bloodstream, from the blood plasma, to form tendrils, like wires, all throughout the brain to certain strategic points. And they said they can use that implant to hear and see what you're hearing and seeing in real time, and probably hear what you're thinking as well.
Wow, that's interesting. Well,
so
I worked
the gray hive mind. Good.
Oh, it connects you to the gray hive mind. Yeah. Because I've always been telepathic. So when I went to a doctor, and then I'll let you ask a question, Sasha, but just one more statement. I went to the doctor because I was getting, operations on my nose ever since I was a teenager, like 13, because they were so bad. The polyps were so bad, and I finally went to a doctor when I was in my 20s, and she showed me the x-ray. She goes, "Why do you have a hole in your head?" So one of my whole sinuses was missing. It's like they took out the sinus from the sinus cavity.
Yeah,
and she said, "You have a hole in your head."
From what I've seen of experiencers, it makes quite a hole when they put the implant in, that particular implant, and it takes quite a while to heal too, if it ever does completely heal.
Well, I heard from somebody, I can't remember who it was, maybe you do, Sash. One of them went wrong, went bad, and the young person died. Was that you, Steve, or another experiencer that was? And do you remember who that was, Sasha?
No,
Steve, go ahead.
Yes, it was Elizabeth, and she said that the guy that was in the program with her, these kids were kidnapped or abducted together. And they didn't consider kidnapped or abducted because they had fun. They had sex with each other and stuff. And this kid was one that she'd played with that way. And he suddenly, he was dead in his room. No one knew what it was all about. He had a hole in his head. And she knew it was because they made a mistake. The technician made a mistake. And so she was afraid after that. And then it became abductions to her because she felt oh shit, what if they make a mistake? So these guys are careless sometimes, but they don't. But they assured her that they did not intend to hurt this other fellow, kill him, or hurt anybody. But they make mistakes sometimes. What the hell?
Yeah, yes, they do. They don't usually make mistakes, but they can, and they have, and there are a certain number of casualties from this program for sure. And they told me that speaking of that particular implant, they told me that once it deploys and integrates itself into the nervous system, it could be fatal to remove it. It becomes part of the system.
Yeah, I would imagine that if it's integrating into your brain, that you don't want just anybody in there taking it out. I wonder what doctors. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, they can implant suggestions for that implant too. I was just going to mention, and the subject usually finds them hard to ignore because they always think it's their idea, at least at the time. And I don't think there's enough connections to do direct control, but you can get at least they can get at least partial control of the subject that way.
So how do you know if all these people have sinus buns, are we all a bunch of zombies, or do we have any free will in there? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I think we still got plenty of free will, but you don't necessarily know if that obsessive thought that's coming your way is yours or whether they're putting it in your head.
Do they have an agenda?
If you have a really obsessive thought that just comes out of nowhere and you can't seem to ignore it very easily, that might be one of their suggestions.
Well, one of mine is to create world peace and to free up the oceans and to, stop wars. And maybe that's where I get the obsessiveness about it. It seems to be my whole life's motivation is to create a higher level of civilization. Can it be something positive?
That's probably a mission statement. There's a more complex suggestion that's like a mission statement that they seem to give everybody, it seems to be either that which you're describing or an obsession with the end of the world, nuclear war, stuff like that, destruction of the environment, those two are very common ones anyway, from what I've seen.
Do you have a mission? Do you think you have a mission?
Me?
Yeah.
I've got the second mission statement. I've always been obsessed with nuclear war and the end of the world, and feel like I've got some sort of a mission to fulfill during the end times or whatever you want to call them. And I've talked to a lot of other experiencers that feel the same way. That feel like they've got either a mission like yours or a mission like mine.
Were you ever shown the timelines? I talked to Tolik, and he was shown timelines and shown the destruction.
No, I've never been shown a timeline. I got the impression that the timeline was top secret, at least until right before it happens. Maybe at the most a year or so before it happens. But I know it's going to be, according to what they've said, they've either lied or been incorrect, or the timeline's changed or something before, because not all their statements come true. But they say it's going to be soon. There'll be a war and an asteroid impact in the ocean. The tsunami of which is going to wipe out the East Coast, and disease and happening to reduce the Earth population.
Yeah, they tend to give us that apocalypto scenario. I was shown 24 timelines, and they were all different. There were 12 that were towards the destructive end, and there were 12 that were the utopian end. And then it wasn't just visual. It was like I was in there, but 360. I could see everything at once. It was beyond sight and sound. I could feel everything. It went into my being. I could smell and see. It was more than just a screen showing it. So I just want to make sure people understand that it was in all the senses.
Simulation they use to impart information to people. And I know what you're talking about. They showed me through that there's an asteroid on the way that's going to hit probably in 2020 sometime.
That sounds like fun.
I think that's off the tip of Greenland, and I think the timeline has, by the way, changed several times. I do get that impression that this is not the original timeline that we were on.
Well, they had me choose the timeline, and then when what do you call it? The Philadelphia experiment moved to Montauk, so they started in August 12th, 1943, and then they moved to Montauk, New York. And so every 20 years, when the biorhythms of the planet are aligned, they do another major time change experiment, because that's when it's easiest to manipulate and control and change things. So by 63, I could tell, August 12th, 63, I could feel the difference. And then, of course, Kennedy was shot, was that November 22nd or 23rd of 63? And I went, oh, that's not the timeline I was on. I didn't say it that way, but I felt, I was only a little girl, but I was so shocked because it was so not on my timeline. That's all I can say. It was not the reality and then of course it kept going with Martin Luther and Bobby and all that stuff. So, but I think they've changed it. They played with it a lot to get what they want.
The number five times comes to mind, but I don't know if that's for sure true or not. But that's what comes to my mind.
Wow. So Sasha, your question. Just put your hand up, Sasha. When you want to talk, just speak up.
Okay. It's very interesting from my perspective as an existentialist. The intention of anything is manifest in the results. And so if we have an apocalypse upon us, I can say if we created this intention, what is its function? And I see the function of the apocalyptic vision, to which you say is one of our options, both of you say is one of our options, is that it makes us really carpe diem, seize this moment to become the one you want to be right now. This is your opportunity. So that's one function, I would say, of the apocalyptic vision. And of course, the other is it may be driving us to the singularity, where we can realize we can solve almost all of our problems technologically, as long as we open our hearts and feel compassion. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I think that's true. I've always been a big believer in solving our problems technologically. It's just that politics seems to get in the way, and I think that the apocalypse will kind of bring people together and back down to earth in a lot of ways, and cut through the politics and lessen the environmental destruction that we're doing to the planet. And I think that also that the system, I believe they told me this, that this system has to die before something better comes into its place. Or the worldwide system, not just this country or anything.
Well, I get a lot of downloads ongoing.
Way of doing things.
Yeah, I get whole systems downloaded to me of how species have governance of their worlds and how they operate. And this one here, I don't let people be offended, but this so-called democracy is a very primitive system where majority kind of rules over, the rights of other people.
In its most primitive form, democracy is not a good thing. It's just tyranny of the majority. So the majority can be as tyrannical as any dictator. It has to be tempered by good representatives. A Republican form of government is supposed to be what we have, where the public has a voice, but it's tempered by good leaders, and we just don't have good leaders right now is the problem.
Yeah, we don't have good leaders, and it's like there's so many laws that get voted in and out based on who's at the top, who's top dog, and that violates somebody's rights. There's always somebody's rights are being taken away, somebody's freedom. So
Well,
so they give me like
is
whole
there's
kind
no
of demos.
there's no accountability in government, and they've usurped powers that they shouldn't have. This country was founded on the principle of limited government, and people have forgotten that apparently.
Sasha has a question. He's raising his hand.
Sure.
Or a comment. Go ahead, son, sweetheart. Go ahead. Sasha?
Hey, can you hear me?
Try.
Can you
now
hear
I
me?
can hear you. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so you know what? It's a really interesting thing, and it's called the perennial philosophy. But if you just are true to yourself, and you start with what is this self, and the more you start to really reflect upon yourself, we call this epoche, the more you reflect upon yourself, the wider that starts to become, so that what I consider myself includes Janet, my wife, and includes humanity, and includes all beings. And you can see that in every culture, whatever your particular symbol system is, it's this expanding self-sense that allows you to identify with everything and be at peace with it.
There's a very loud noise in the background. Do you hear that?
Yeah, do you want to try the headphones, honey? Try those headphones I gave you. Yeah, because you're getting some feedback or something. Or take your volume down just a little notch. Yeah, go. I'm sorry. What did you want to say about what Sasha just said, Steve?
I missed part of it because there was a very loud feedback noise or something.
Okay, try that again, honey, because you were getting feedback. Do you have your headphone on?
No, I don't. It had nothing to do with my machine at all, because it's something else that was happening. Because now I don't have it on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Everything's fine now.
That the perennial philosophy that we anthropologists have found almost everywhere is that one thing that happens is when a person is just true to themselves and they contemplate that self, that self-sense becomes larger and larger. We call that placing ourselves in epoche, until ultimately you identify with the whole thing and understand that you can include all of the levels of consciousness in as parts of your larger self, and the parts are real and the whole is real too. And when you get to that space, whatever your symbol system is, you can just relax and realize things are perfect just the way they are, and the challenges you feel and your frustrations that you feel are just part of the perfect situation that you've got. It's perfect for you and perfect for the universe.
It sounds like you're talking about becoming more noble to consider other people's problems as well as your own. Do things for the common good.
Yes.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. That being true to yourself would lead to that. You cannot be a person of integrity without being true to yourself. That's for sure.
Right. When you had contact, and I know this is a common experience, they actually explored it on that show, People of Earth, but were you told that you are special, or you have something that you're going to do that's special, that's going to contribute? It's almost like a Christ consciousness implant.
Yeah,
what did they tell you?
They tell all of us that, some version of that we're the chosen, we're special, and that we're going to save the earth someday. They told me that people like me were going to save the earth someday and save humanity someday, and they told me that we're the best of humanity, and that we're a new race destined to multiply or something, or come to greatness or something like that. What did they tell you?
Oh, they told me that I have come to Earth to do something which will benefit all of humankind. And so I was probably 4 at that time. And then I went into the house and I contemplated. And then I went to my mother and I said, Mom, I want to go talk to God. Will you let me go to Sunday school? And the church, it was a Presbyterian church, they said, well, they won't let you in until you turn 5. You're too young. You're only 4. And so I got all bummed out. And then I guess I must have had another communication with my BTs, and I came back and I was kind of instructed what to say. And I said to her, no, Mom, if you go and ask them to let your little girl in who wants to learn about God, they will let me in. And they did. And so, of course, once I got in there after a few years ago, these are a bunch of hypocrites. This isn't God. I was wanting to have the same experience I had, which was basically like a conscious. They let me remember my experience when I was 4. I never forgot it. Totally conscious. I didn't have to go into hypnosis to recover that. But of course, when you remember something like that, you can't go back and tell the people on Earth. You can't tell your parents or your brother and sister. And they somehow gave me the wisdom not to go in and say that to my people that were my family. But what I noticed was when I was on board ship, I was my eternal self. So I was in my little, 4-year-old human form, but my consciousness had expanded to my eternal self, to my awareness of myself in my role in the cosmos. But then when you come back into your body, they have to put you back into your little Janet program consciousness, so you don't so you aren't deemed insane, and they start treating you weird. So, it was good. They protected me all the way around, but it was totally conscious. And then I don't remember else what I was going to say, but I'll speak up if it comes back to me. There's something else I want to say about that. Well, they gave me the Mandela effect. They showed me 2 major timelines. So they said, based on the decision that I made, of the timeline I chose, and they said that when you came on board ship, the first movie, because they made a theater for me that looked like a movie, right? A movie theater. Right. And I hadn't been to one yet. Back in the 50s, they didn't take children under 5 to movie theaters. So that was the other thing I wanted to do. They said, the first movie you're going to see now is Hercules Unleashed. But when you came up, the first movie you were going to see was Hercules. So that was 58 and 59, and I somehow switched some things between 1958 and 1959. Then I went and I asked my mom to take me to a movie, I guess, and it took a little while, but I finally got to have that thing. But that was the Mandela effect. That was showing that if you choose a different timeline, you're going to have different outcomes from where you are. So I think we can choose them. They were showing me 24 majors. They said there's endless timelines, but here's the 24 that closely resonate with each other. And depending on your choices in life, you'll go down one of those 24 timelines. You might switch as an individual. My understanding was I can switch timelines based on my decisions.
It's
something like that.
And more than that, Janet, if you were Hercules, or if your Herculean part were unchained, what would you be like? What are you like when you're Hercules? Unchained.
That's funny.
Getting back to what you were talking about before, that it's very interesting that you felt a different consciousness when you were on board ship. I had a similar experience when I first was regressed. I realized that they'd set up a different personality for me for when I'm with them. That's more like my real self, and down here is just a different personality that's designed just to get along with maximum efficiency on Earth. And it struck me as kind of like the movie Total Recall, if you ever saw that, where they programmed Arnold with a different personality for a mission, and he does like his regular personality and his Mars personality, or that he had when he was on this mission. And I think that's why you don't remember very much about what happened during experiences. The memories are still there, but they're on a different personality track. It's like a different tape of memories, or different storage line of memories, whatever you want to call it. Does that make sense?
Well, that's probably true. They do that. They split people and create subpersonalities or alters for the super space program and
too,
stuff like that.
With their telepathic power, they can probably do it very easily.
Yeah.
Make a split personality.
Oh, Sasha wants to say something. Go ahead, baby. He turns on his camera when he wants to talk.
One of the most interesting things when I regress people, and I regress them when they're in subpersonalities. We start from our center, and then we move into different subpersonalities. And when I regress somebody's inner critic, or their wild adolescent, or their soldier subself, whatever it is, it has a whole different history of past lives than other subselves have, or that the primary self has, for that matter. And people can access those. And so, we say in psychotherapy, S above, so below, and so within the subpersonalities.
That's very interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So what I got is that they've always loved and respected me, and they do things to protect me. So if I would have gone back and said, I was on board the ship and I talked to God and all that stuff, they probably would have treated me differently. So it seemed like I was protected. In fact, they said to me, I wonder if anybody else has gotten this, you're being protected from, there's a faction that we don't want to know that you exist yet, and that you're being protected. Now, we're always protecting you. And it seems like my whole life, it just seems very magical that I'm being guided and I'm being protected, and I definitely feel love. I feel love from these beings. And then, I've been to the different council meetings and large groups. I went to one, there was over 100,000 individual species. There were no two members of the same species, just one from each species, in a big giant facility where you could see 360 everybody. It was like a big arena, and there were 100,000 plus unique individual species, and I was there representing the Earth, but I wasn't the only one. They rotate. I mean, you might have been there for all you know, but that was another one. They let me come back with full conscious memories, and I was an adult living with Sasha, and I came back from that one, and I was bilocating for a while. I was where I was in my bedroom, and I have a stream outside my bedroom window, and I could hear the birds, I was where my eyes were closed, but I was where the sun was coming up, and it was after dawn, and it was getting brighter, but I was still, I could just kind of focus, and I would still be back at this large meeting with all these people. And so I was bilocating. It was really weird, but I was so excited when I finally, popped fully back into this reality. But I don't think maybe I wasn't there physically. I'm not sure. Sometimes they take us physically right, and sometimes we go in our astral spirit form. What's your awareness?
Certainly.
I don't call them abductions.
Not all of them are physical. I think most of them are, but not all of them. I've had those astral ones before.
Yeah, I don't call them abductions anymore. I'm so excited when I have these experiences.
Yeah, neither do I. I mean, you really don't have much of a choice, so you might as well just get used to it and just cooperate. There's positive aspects to this. That's what I tell everybody. You get to fly in space and know things other people don't know, and I think just focusing on the positive is the best thing. And I think their agenda probably is for the common good. Anyway, I believe them on that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's positive, but who knows? But I get a positive vibe. It's not like I'm not afraid. They actually right now are coming in my, they will come into my living room, and it's broad daylight, and they'll come into the living room and they'll stand by. Well, my bed's down in the living room because I have a leaky roof, so they'll come in the living room and they'll stand right there by the side of the bed. One time they showed up in a tall, over 5-foot owl, and I opened my eyes and it was daylight and it was early morning, and I said, "Oh, come on, really?" and then it immediately shapeshifted to a gray. It's like, oh yeah, oh, just kidding, that type of thing. They seem to have a sense of humor. Yeah. Have you had any?
They have a strange sense of humor. Dr. Leir commented on that as well.
Oh, tell us what Dr. Leir said. Let's talk about Dr. Leir a little bit. Tell us about your life with working with Dr. Leir.
Oh well, I got the implant in my toe on February, I believe it was February 28th, 2008. I was staying in the house alone, and my wife had just had our daughter, and she was staying over with her mom's house at her mom's house for a few days, and I decided to stay at the house alone this one night to water the plants and stuff. And I got tired and decided I was just going to sleep there, and I heard some noises, and I went out in the backyard and saw these two huge raccoons that were, one of them was like 70 pounds and one was like 50 pounds. I'd never seen any raccoons anywhere near that size before. I didn't even know they got that big. But they seemed semi-tame. I fed the animals some cat food so they wouldn't eat all of our avocados, and went to bed. And I woke up in the morning and discovered that there was some blood on my sheets and this weird stinging pain in my toe, and my head hurt a little bit on the right side, and I just knew that I didn't remember anything, but I just knew that they were there in the middle of the night, and that I had 2 more implants. And but there had been all kinds of stuff going on prior to this. My wife reported being scanned by what looked like a big piece of sheet steel that was on end and moving from one end to the other on her body, and like it was scanning her, and it had what looked like weird electrical discharges coming out of it. And she tried to wake me up to see it, and the second I started waking up, it turned into a red beam of light, she said, and shot out the window. And she had triangle marks on her abdomen when she was pregnant, and just a bunch of weird stuff. And so after I got the implant, I wanted to go get it x-rayed to see if there was anything in there, and I knew there probably was, but I wanted to find out for sure. So Dr. Leir only worked a few blocks from where I used to work in Camarillo, California, and I made an appointment with him and said I had a pain in my toe, and he said to come back if it doesn't go away, and I came back the next week and told him it was due to a probable alien implant. And I don't know if he believed me at first, but he gave me a prescription to have it x-rayed and told them to give a copy to me. And so they gave me a copy of the film, and after they x-rayed it, and I couldn't wait to hold it up to the light and see if anything was in there. And I knew I was going to see something, but when I did, that changed my life completely. I mean, there's a heck of a difference. I always tell people between strongly suspecting that something like this is happening and knowing for sure. In that moment, I knew for sure. So he expressed a strong interest in removing it, and so after about 7 months, he took it out, and it broke into several pieces on removal, and the pieces all lined up in their original order when it was in the storage. That really astonished him, and he said he didn't have any place to have it tested, so I said, well, just give me a couple of pieces and I'll analyze it at my work. I was working at a material science place, and they had all kinds of state-of-the-art instruments, like a scanning electron microscope and FTIR and Raman, and just every instrument you could care to name, pretty much. So I analyzed the objects and wrote a report on the analysis, and then he and I partnered up, and I went back and analyzed some of the implants that he'd removed that he hadn't analyzed adequately or at all before, and I was present for the next 2 implant removals. So it was quite a run. I mean, I really liked Dr. Leir. He was one of my best friends, and he was one of the best ufologists I've ever seen. He had a lot of knowledge that nobody else has to my knowledge. And it was a great loss to the field when he died. I wish he'd been able to stick around a while longer. But,
I saw him several times at conferences. He was very interesting. His work was phenomenal.
Very interesting man, and he really had a unique perspective. And going to conventions isn't really as much fun without him, that's for sure.
Now, were they all in the extremities? I mean, I would be kind of leery about anybody taking something out of my head. You know, I would want to just do that out of curiosity. Now, I wasn't aware I had any in my arms or legs. Were all the ones that he did in arms and legs, or were any in other parts of the body that he removed?
Let's see. He removed, I think, one more from the toe, and a couple from the foot in general, and one from a guy's wrist, another from a finger or hand, another one from the jaw. And in general, the objects are implanted in either the head or the extremities. I only know one case where a guy has an implant in his torso. In fact, that's an interesting case because, in addition to being really rare, a magnet sticks to his chest at that point. It's very.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And he also reported that when he had an MRI done, the whole area vibrated as if there were a wire coming off it that was vibrating in response to the magnetic field. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, you're not supposed to have metal in an MRI, so these things are organic for the most part?
Some are organic and some are metallic. The one that came out of my toe had a metallic core. Most of them in the extremities have a metallic core. The one that they do up the nose is all organic. It's a conductive polymer. And there's moving ones, too, that we have not been able to get samples of that move under the skin. Willie Strieber has one of those behind his ear. And Dr. Lerma from Texas tried to remove it once, and it ran away from his scalpel, but he managed to get a small scraping of it, and said it had cilia on it. I'd like to see the data sometime, but they've never really been analyzed to my knowledge, but I suspect that they're made of a conductive polymer too. But that's one or the other. What, say again?
Well, that's really part of the communication. Wait, there goes my mic. That's part of the communication. There is this wonderful substance, this polymer, that they've left us traces, and we are just smart enough to figure out what it is, or at least be closer to figuring out what it is and how to do it ourselves because of these pieces, these itty-bitty, it's a clue. And so tell us what you know about this stuff, about the polymer.
Well, the polymer, I'm sure, is. I know that the ones that go up the nose are a conductive polymer, but that's all I could really gather from the data I've got as far as exactly what it is. It's probably too complicated for complete analysis, but we have examples of some conductive polymers in the lab here, like polyacetylene and polythiophene and polyaniline and a couple others, and I would think that they're probably mixtures of similar polymers, but a lot more complex and allowing for a von Neumann machine type of self-assembly of wires from the device. It's probably going to be a while, and we'll probably have to develop better analytical techniques to find out exactly the exact structure of these not compounds, but these the polymeric materials.
What makes you think they come from off planet, or are they igneous, or is there any way you can determine their origin?
With the polymeric ones, no, probably not. With the metallic ones, they definitely come from off planet because the trace element pattern was very similar to that of at least the one from my toe is very similar to that of a nickel iron meteorite of a class called hexahedrites. And we also saw indications on a couple of them, and also from some of the alien crash debris of strange non-standard isotopic ratios of the elements in the metal that would indicate also that it came from off-planet.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
So
we definitely have indications that at least most of these objects came from off-planet. The materials did anyway.
So what else would you like to tell us about Dr. Leir's research before we go into another topic?
Well, he knew a lot about the Skinwalker Ranch, and he related a story to me about that. He said that the former owner of the Skinwalker Ranch had a bunch of prize bulls, and you said before that the aliens had a strange sense of humor, a sense of humor. And he said the same thing. He said that they once found these prize bulls packed into some small storage shed, like 8 of them or so, packed into a small storage shed with them all like tangled up with each other in complex ways so that they couldn't possibly get out. And it was almost like you took if you had transporter technology, it was almost like you took that and beamed them in there in some strange way in a geometrical pattern such that they couldn't possibly extricate themselves, and they had to tear the shed down to get them out. But they were unharmed. They were not harmed at all. And he had quite a few.
That's horrible.
Yeah, they have kind of a not sadistic sense of humor, but pretty close to it, I guess, or in some ways.
Oh my goodness! Here we have to tear the shit down. Oh my god! Oh wow, they're weird. Yes, that's true. So let's see, where do we want to go?
We went on a sky watch one time, and with night vision goggles with Ed Grimsley, and Grimsley and Dr. Leir were pretty good friends, and he came over one time to Ventura County, where we're at, and we went on a sky watch, and I brought my son along, and it was as if the UFOs were putting on a show. I mean, we'd see 2 obviously objects in orbit. It looked like they were about 400 miles up from what I saw, and a lot of them were big enough to see a definite disc. Like they must have been at least a mile in diameter. And Grimsley flashed at one with a laser pointer, and it flashed back, and did that a couple times. And we saw ones orbiting in the same orbit, following each other, and we saw ones making S turns in orbit, and we saw ones that would slow down to almost a stop, and then speed up again and resume their orbits. And there's just no way you can do that with chemical fuels. It requires too much delta V. So we were seeing obviously high-tech spacecraft that were anti-gravity driven or some sort of electric propulsion driven in orbit, and it seemed like it was the Greys putting on a show for us. I couldn't help it.
Yeah, I had it
because he was there. Good.
Oh yeah, they were showing off. Well, I had a similar thing where I was sleeping, and the next thing I know, I'm in like a ski chalet, and I'm looking down over a valley, and they did the same thing. They showed me every craft. It was like the end of Close Encounters, right? But it was all for me. And they're showing me all these craft. I'm not talking about way up in the sky. They came right over my head, and they kept coming from the left and the right and top and the back behind me. And then after the display, they took the whole sky, and it was like a scroll of words. It was all hieroglyphics. I don't know what it was. It wasn't anything I've ever recognized. And I said, "What does it mean? What are you showing me this for? What's it mean?" And they said, "Oh, well, it'll make sense later. Don't worry about it. You'll know what it means later." I still don't know what it means, what they were showing me. But and then I was shocked because I knew I was there. So I don't think they took me in my astral self, because I could feel the wind on my face. I could feel the elements, and I went, "Oh, I'm really here. I'm really here." So I always like it, though. I get very excited and very happy and joyous that this is happening. So, and I was just like so elated for days after that. So, but and then later I went to that place. I was it was in California. It was Mount Madonna, and that's where I met Sasha. Mm-hmm. So when I got there, I was like, oh, "This is where they brought me," because it wasn't where I had. The furthest west I had been was Ohio, right? I was living in Pennsylvania, and then I moved to Hawaii, and then I ended up going to California. When I met Sasha in 1990, what was it? 97. That was about 4 years. Oh, that happened. I remember they said the date. It was August 31st, 1993, when they showed that to me. So, and then I left. That was like a sign to leave. I had to leave Pennsylvania, and I had to move to Hawaii. If I was going to do the next phase of my life, I had to get out of there. So
that's quite
anyway,
a move
it was
from
all
Pennsylvania to Hawaii.
Oh yeah, it was. I didn't know anybody. I only knew one person. I left everybody I knew to yeah. So they do, like you said, they tell you things to do, but I've never been guided in the wrong direction. Everything was just perfect. It's like, yeah, this is how my life was supposed to unfold. I would have never met Sasha if I had stayed in Pennsylvania. So I wouldn't have had this incredible life. Yeah. So I've always had positive experiences. Oh yeah, yeah. They come up on my deck. The small sport model. And it was a year ago now. It came up. It was towards the end of the year. I think it was December of last year. And it just hovered about 6 feet above my deck, and I'm going, what? And, and they said, oh, we can't land on your deck. Your deck couldn't hold the weight. Oh, we're on our break. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back in 5 minutes after this commercial break.
All right.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
You need some more speed records in this day and age. You need coverage.
Coverage? Oh, you mean them little root weevils that crawl around popping off cameras in your face?
Those root weevils write history.
Many of you know that quote by Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men, you can't handle the truth. Well, you can, and Event Horizons will give you those truths. So when you're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore from that memorable CNN network, you'll know just what to do. We will draw you in and become your news addiction at Event Horizons. Join us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time at freedomslips.com. Revolution Radio. Our world team members are Dennis Fetcho, John Ilias, David Dunger, Hyla Cass, MD, Melanie Bridgeton, Jim Mars, Paula Harris, John Trallo, Maria Payan, Christopher Husser, DODDS, Jonathan Orchard, and me, your anchor, Dr. Robin Falco.
If you decide not to volunteer, it will not be held against you in any way.
Sounds dangerous.
It is. Very dangerous.
Count me in.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a 5th dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitor's peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, by all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio!
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
Do you or someone you know suffer from poor circulation, shortness of breath, or chest pains? Are you looking for a more natural solution to help overcome these problems? People tell us that after just a few months taking Extendivite, their doctors have noticed unexplainable improvements in their overall health. For more information, visit heartdrop.com or call 1-877-928-8822.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
And tell them Nighthawk sent you, because if you call this number and tell them Nighthawk sent you, you'll get $5 off your first order at extendivite.com. Thank you. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Are you muted, Janet?
Janet is hosting in a different dimension right now. So this is Sasha, if you can hear me. I'd like you to tune in to us. We are trying to raise money to save our station and pay its bills. And Mad will, in the meantime, tell you how to do that while I see what in the hell happened to Janet.
She's muted it. You just come down to the homepage, which is revolution.radio, and hit the funding button. We need $24.50, and we got $23.41, so that leaves $109, and we got 4 days to make it. I think we can pull it off, folks. We sure appreciate it. She's showing muted, Sasha.
I'm going to go kick her in the... Janet, unmute. Okay, she wants us to carry on. Does that sound like fun? Let's carry on.
All right, let's do that.
Okay, so hey, what's the hottest thing that you'd like to share that's blow minds and entertain us and teach us something?
One thing that blew my mind was that these implants and perhaps some of the other alien crash debris as well have carbon nanotubes inside them built into the metal, like a three-dimensional array of these things inside the metal that probably act as electronics. It's something that we're trying to do in earthly science right now, but it's apparently old technology to them. You could, in theory, make a carbon nanotube array with electronic array with metallic carbon nanotubes that are almost a perfect conductor as the wiring, and then semiconducting carbon nanotubes acting as the diodes and transistors in the array. And it would be much more robust and probably faster and smaller than what we're using now, a lot smaller. And so it's amazing to me that they could actually build something like that into the metal on these things. These implants are probably like the equivalent of supercomputers.
Wow!
And, they also transmit radio signals, and they're not always transmitting, but they definitely transmit data to whoever put them in. And nerve cells grow into the device, so that's the way they're gathering data from the body in a lot of cases. And a lot of times the metal can be super strong, like it was in the case of patient number 16. It came out of patient number 16's wrist. The metal portion of the implant was incredibly strong. It couldn't be cut by diamond tools, and that's unheard of. Diamond tools will cut just about any metal, and it wouldn't cut this, and it scared the hell out of the shop owner that we took it to, and finally had to cut it with a high-energy laser just to see the interior of the device. And there's a lot of mind-blowing aspects to these devices.
Wow. The question that immediately comes to my mind anyway, is what is the source of the monitor? Who's or what is picking up the signal? Where does the signal go? What's on the other end of that? What kind of information and speculation do you have?
Well, we don't. The standard answer is we don't know, but speculation based on what they've told me and what they've told other experiencers is that the signal goes to a central computer on the moon, which is the central computer that correlates information for experiencers and aliens in this sector. And every individual in their society, including experiencers, are connected to a central computer that stores and correlates all the information from their lives. DARPA was actually proposing a system like this. They probably got the idea from the aliens. Every experiencer's life is an experiment, and they want to find out what their presence in their lives and/or any modifications they've made. What effect that has without any big interference.
Well, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Loud and clear.
Okay, good. I had to go to another system. I don't know what's wrong with my computer. When I muted, I can't get back unmuted. So that correlates with the Lawrence Spencer's information interview with the alien, where he wrote the book about the nurse's interview from the nurse process after Roswell. They took the main Gray ET, like she was the head of the mission, and they interviewed her. So it's a series on YouTube, at least it was a few years back, and it's a book called Interview with the Alien Interview. And she said that this is a prison system here. It's a prison system, and they go the facility on the moon, and they can't get the souls out of here, and that's why we're in this cycle of birth, life, death, rebirth, and they want to get us out of this system because about 1,000 of the gray souls got trapped in this cycle. I guess they're the Dropas from where was that, China or Tibet or something. There were about 1,000 of them. They got killed. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they want us to wake up and become conscious, and that's why a lot of the crashes, if not all of them, are not crashes. They're intentionally giving us technology. They crash, so we think, oh, they crashed, we took them down. But they're really Trojan horses, and they want us to reverse engineer because, we're very creative people. We have the ability to image and imagine, and we can get outside of the box, and perhaps we'll be able to figure out a way to break through this prison system, which has this part of the solar system, or maybe maybe just our solar system in this prison system we can't seem to escape. But
they told me this is a prison planet, and that the Earth is under quarantine due to the ferocity and primitive nature of its life form, or something like that. And they said that they didn't say anything to me about breaking through the system, but they definitely wanted us to reverse engineer the crash debris, because if they didn't, they would have just taken it back, whether we knocked the aircraft down or not, spacecraft down or not.
That's right.
They told me that they want hybrids and experiencers as part of their society because they made a mistake in wiping out all emotion through genetic engineering many, many years ago, and that they want to use human creativity to try to advance their technology. So they told you something similar then?
That's what's in the alien interview. Yeah. So you're getting the same thing that was reported by the nurse that interviewed Errol. Her name was Errol the Gray. That was the Roswell Gray. It's in a book. You can pick it up and you'll be astonished what it says. It's basically that. But I get a lot of this information too, so it correlates with what I know as well. But when I read that, I went, oh yeah, that's the best written and video analysis of what's going on. So anyway, they want to get out of this system. They're helping us evolve, become conscious. And we're very connected to them. We're in this close relationship. I don't get that they're evil or bad. Some of them are like not even the gray souls. They're androids. So humans, when we make an android, it looks like Data, right? It looks like Sophia. So when they make their androids, they look like grays. But some of them are not souls. They're androids.
Yeah, they're very into making biological robots. They're not too into electronic robots, but they're very into biological ones. And some of them probably are. Some of these so-called aliens we see probably are biobots or whatever you want to call them. And No, I don't think they're evil either. I think that they're pure intellect. At least that's the way they strike me. Is that their emotions are vestigial compared to the ones humans have, and that's good and bad. I mean, you can't have intelligence as high as they have, from what they were telling me anyway, without stunting the emotions somewhat. But they realize now that you lose certain things when you ban all emotions. Creativity being one of them. So they feel they need a balance now of emotion and intellect.
Right. Our biggest asset, the human beings can create. We are very creative. We have imaging process, and we can image with our imagination. We can pull things down into material form by imaging it and then, inventing it, creating it. So that's why we're so valuable, and that's what they lost. So that all correlates. Now, these implants, did they? Oh shoot! I lost Sasha's way to wave at me. Did they? Are they from our government, or can you tell if they're from our government or if they're extraterrestrial?
The ones I've seen, the ones I've seen are mostly. The ones I've seen are mostly alien, because they seem to be beyond our technology with the carbon nanotube electronics and all. They also one amazing thing about them too is they don't produce any immune response in the body, no inflammation whatsoever, and that's unheard of. I don't think the government can do that, at least not yet. But and I've also seen some devices that I think did come from the government, and they're a lot bigger and they're much more conventional technology. So I think most of these are definitely, in my opinion, alien.
Okay, because they're technologically advanced over anything we have. So that brings us to like the nanotechnology. Is that part of why we're developing nanotechnology? Besides cleaning up the blood and the medical uses and whatever.
Yeah, I think they probably want the alien implant technology, and they want alien nanotechnology in general. The aliens use a lot of nanotechnology, like on board their craft. You probably remember this. A lot of times there's no door as we envision it. It's solid metal, and then you just touch it, and it opens up. The metal actually moves. That's all nanotechnology. And like these, they have a whole network of alien probes, spherical alien probes that are about the size of a basketball that relay them data all throughout the world. And they've got electronics and propulsion and everything they need built right into the metal. And all that's nanotechnology, just like with the implants. And it's just very useful stuff that the government would like to have. So I think that I'm pretty sure they even got the idea for nanotechnology from the aliens. I don't think that they thought that up on their own.
Right. We tend to reverse engineer a lot of things, and that's what happened with the Roswell craft and the technologies. We have the night vision goggles and things from that reverse engineering, all the stuff that Lieutenant Corso got, plus other people that we're not aware of. So, Sash, I'm going to pass the talking stick back to you. Do you have insight?
Indeed. I just wonder, given the information you're getting and the direct contact that you're having, have the men in black or the military been hassling you and getting into your head and getting and taking you too?
In my head, no. I think I was taken back in 2015, June of 2015, by a government agency. I think it might have been the NSA. Under regression, I remember humans in dark suits, and they did some physical damage to me at that point. I'm not sure what their motivation was, but I remembered under regression being on I remember consciously at the time just a lot of pain and being in a room and on a gurney of some kind. Under regression, I remember the guys in suits and a room that looked like the basement of some government building or an underground lab. And they had me on a hospital cart of human design, and my legs were in metal gauntlets that extended about up to the knee, and they had pressurized liners in them, and they pressurized the one on the right leg to what felt like over 150 psi, and it was uncomfortable at first, and then it started really just becoming unbearable, and I freaked out from the pain, and that's all I remember. And then I woke up. I woke up back where I went to sleep, and I felt really groggy, like I was drugged, and it felt like my ankle was broken, or there was something wrong with my leg. And I went back to sleep, hoping it was all a dream. Woke up a couple hours later, and indeed it was not a dream. And my ankle was broken, and I found out over the next few days I had found out over the next few days that I had a massive blood clot in the main vein from that leg, and the doctor thought I was going to die. Thought I was going to break off and go to my lungs, and so I had to be on blood thinners for a while. And I made a full recovery, but I know that the government did that to me, but I'm not sure whether they were trying to kill me or whether it was an experiment gone wrong or what their motivation was. But it wasn't fun. But I'm going to keep on trucking and doing what I need to do, and just because, like a wise man once said, just because certain people do things they're not supposed to do doesn't mean that I should stop doing what I'm supposed to do. So.
Oh.
Right on, yeah. Well, I'm sorry that you had that. I've never had like the Men in Black come to me. I've had clients that have had to work through the Men in Black thing. I had an opposite thing. I had angelic humanoids. They would come in. They didn't have the wings, but I had a thing where I had a very bad abscess tooth, or I had what was called dry socket after getting my wisdom teeth pulled, and I went into chills, and I was very sick, and I had to get home from work, and nobody would drive me, so I had to get on the bus. And anyway, they helped me as soon as I got to the dentist, and I was shaking and feverish, and everybody in the office disappeared. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting in a chair, and there's nobody there. And you could feel like something happened. Everybody left. And the next thing I know, this beautiful doctor came in. They always have the eyes, right? And he comes over, and he has his mouth covered. Most of his face is covered, but his eyes are showing. And he comes over, and he does his healing on me around my mouth. And so he did some things, and then he must have had the rest of the dental office, unconscious or something. And then he came back, and they came back. He let them come back, and they said, "You're done now. You can go home." But that was amazing. Mm-hmm. I've had 3 incidences of these angelic beings come in, and this is 3D, regular life. I'm not sleeping. I was getting an exam to go to I won a scholarship for another year of college, and came in. I had to get an exam, and they came and did an exam, and he was touching my stomach, and he says, "What's going on there?" And anyway, he did some corrections in my intestines because I probably had an obstruction, and he prevented. But there's a vibe to them. They're very. It's like your third eye chakra is just is vibrating very high speed the whole time there. And so who knows? They made themselves look like beautiful humans, but for all I know, they could have been grays coming in the middle of the day and do an intervention. So, because I'm on mission, right?
They can make you think they look like whatever they want to look like. So it's hard to say. It's one of the most frustrating things about this phenomenon is that we're dealing with telepaths that can make people think anything is real if they want to bad enough. And I wanted to say too that I gave the doctor. I gave the doctor a cover story. I didn't when I went to the doctor. I didn't want to say that I woke up with the injury and didn't know for sure how it happened. So I told him I fell out of my motorhome, and he didn't believe me, and he told me that it was a twisting injury. it was a twisting injury, like a gorilla had twisted my foot really hard,
Well, sometimes they're not very careful. I remember getting returned, and it seemed like they plopped me into bed from about 3 or 4 feet high, or so, or even they just plop you, and then you land. You go, and all the air's out of you. It's like, oh my goodness, can't you put me down, sweetly? And I remember that a couple times. It's like, please that's be true. Kind to my body. Yeah, but they need some sensitivity training. The care.
Yeah, they're not very.
And handling of a human being. No, not sensitive at all. So you are doing some kind of research into nanotechnology. What got you interested in that? Was that because of your work with Dr. Leir, or were you going in that direction anyway with your job, or what's going on there?
My last job, I was on a project to find new products based on single-wall carbon nanotubes, and I just realized that it's a really hot, up-and-coming field. And that got me interested in it. I'm trying to start my own nanotechnology company now, and there's a lot of possible products to be made with these materials. They're the world's strongest known material. They have a strength-to-weight ratio, something like 200 times greater than, in theory anyway, greater than steel, and they're very light yet strong, and they have unique electrical properties. Some types conduct almost perfectly like a superconductor, and others are semiconductors, and it depends on the way the layer of carbon atoms is wound into the tube. The most stable form of carbon is graphite, and it's stacks of carbon atoms double bonded together in a hexagonal chicken wire type formation. If you took a layer of carbon atoms from graphite and rolled it into a tube, that would be a carbon nanotube, a single wall carbon nanotube. And you can have multi-wall, double wall, or multi-wall carbon nanotubes where there's one inside the other too. But single wall carbon nanotubes have the most potential. And one thing they're trying to do too is use them to strengthen materials, especially metals. If you could disperse single wall carbon nanotubes inside metal, you could potentially make metals that would be between 10 and 100 times stronger than any we have now. And indeed, I think that the material in the implant from patient number 16 was one such material. It had the highest concentration of carbon nanotubes we'd seen, but they were very well dispersed because they didn't show up on scanning electron micrographs. And I think that accounted for the material's extreme strength.
Do you have to have this built into the metal, or could you go to an existing bridge or something, and once you've mastered this, up-level them? Or do you have to start from the making of the metal form itself?
I'm not sure I understand the question. What could you please?
When you have understand how to make these super strong metal alloys or combinations, do you have to form the metal that you're baking the bridge with from the get-go, or can you go to the Brooklyn Bridge and give it a shot of this stuff?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I think you have to form the nanotubes and the metal together from the get-go. I don't think you could put nanotubes into the metal after the fact. It's I don't know of any way to do that anyway. Every way to do this that's been proposed has been the first method of forming them together at one time, and they have to be highly dispersed in the metal, and they have to be they also have to have a coating on the metal so that makes it adhere to the metal. If it doesn't adhere, then it won't transfer its strength. So it's a pretty challenging thing to do.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So, what else would you like to tell us about your research, your discoveries? We have like about a half an hour left. Where do you want to go with this information? What do you want to tell our people?
Well, we got one indication from the implant that came out of my toe that if the isotopic ratio analysis we have was accurate, it might have come from not only another part of the solar system, and maybe another part of the galaxy entirely, because the isotopic ratios of these elements was not just a little off; it was way off. So the metal had either been exposed to very high energy, a large amount of very high energy particulate radiation, or it came from another part of our galaxy, and one of our associates thought that it definitely came from another part of our galaxy, and Dr. Kuhn's, former NSA cryptographer, was of that opinion.
Where was Dr. Leir going to go with his research? His passing was okay.
Wait, was this toxic? Do the implants have toxic levels for the person that bears them? Is this bad for the person's body?
No, apparently not, because they don't produce any inflammation. You would think that if they were producing a toxic reaction, it would produce inflammation around the site, and you don't see any of that. Dr. Leir did say that people that are abductees tend to have night blindness and have low levels of vitamin A. Whether that is because of implants or not, I don't know. And speaking for myself, I have just the opposite problem or whatever. I have night vision that approaches being a superpower of some kind. I can see very, very well at night and don't have any problem with night blindness, and presumably have normal vitamin A levels. So there's different classes of experiencers. There's the class that I think you and I are, Janet, that I call Class 2 experiencers, that are trained, implanted, and become part of the alien program on Earth and part of the hierarchy. And then they have people that they just take for samples, and DNA samples, blood samples, organ samples, that kind of thing, or use them as breeding incubators, and they're a lot more likely to ruin the health of those people. I call those Class 1 experiencers.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that I just wanted to add. I think that mine was definitely some kind of mistake that, I wish they would do some correction, because I have horrible allergies and sinusitis. So maybe they have. Maybe it would have been worse if they hadn't done intervention, but I've had a lifetime. And their technology is improving over the years as well. What was the earliest, how old are you? Or I was I was involved in his programs in the crib. So we're talking about, I was born in 1954. So you're younger than I am, right?
Yeah, I was born in 1960, so I'm 58, and I do feel like their technology has advanced a little bit since then, but they're off the steep part of the learning curve, and that's part of the reason I said they're taking us is to get human creativity to partner with us and advance their technology faster than they would have otherwise.
Right.
So you're probably part of the first class of Class 2 experiencers, and I feel like there's been different classes, different batches, classes, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Are you okay, honey? You coughing? Okay.
You look a lot younger than your age too. So, and I think that's also characteristic of Class 2 experiencers. So do I.
Yeah, people don't know. They don't realize I'm that old. I'm going to be 65, but I think I'm on mission, right? So they do that with their super soldiers. Even the Well, the human super soldiers that are in the secret space program, I interview a lot of them, and they do everything to keep them alive because they've invested a lot in them. And I'm getting feedback. Why am I getting feedback? Anyway.
They have a lot invested in all Class 2 experiencers, maybe especially in the super soldiers. I don't know, but I kind of have some reason to believe that I might have done some kind of things along those lines for them, but they definitely seem to want a group of people that could potentially fight a war for them. They like Celtic people of Celtic background, Germanic background, and Native American background the best to make Class 2 experiencers out of. That's what Dr.
Yeah, and I'm definitely a Celt. Oh, really? Okay. So he correlates with that. Yeah, I'm definitely a Celt. I'm Scotch-Irish, Dutch, French, German, and English, mainly UK English. So that's what we're finding. They've had a lot of what was his name? Rodriguez. He's Latinic, but they look for certain qualities and characteristics for their super soldiers. They like the people that are naturally psychic, and they enhance those. But they do seem to have different categories, like you're talking about. Some are like the grunt workers, and some, like Randy Kramer, they become leaders. Some are just doing all this grunt work. Some are used for slaves, sex slaves. All this stuff is coming out. I don't know how far. So Dr. Leir was interviewing these people as well? Like he was getting their stories?
He did a lot of interviews with experiencers as well, and I picked up the ball on that one, and I've been running with it and ever since. And I think it's very interesting research to just get people's stories and scan them for implants and indications of recent alien abduction, and to see if there's consistencies, and there almost always are. One thing I'd like to mention too is that you can tell if somebody's been recently abducted by the presence of indelible UV fluorescent dyes left behind on the body, and sometimes on like the carpeting and the walls next to the person's bed. It takes like a month, up to a month, to wash off the body afterwards. They're darn near indelible, and it takes a while for the skin. They don't come off till the skin wears off. And they're different colors: blue, yellow, green, and orange being the most common.
Now, are they always touching their subjects, or are they, sometimes you're going astrally, sometimes you're going physically. Yeah. What I find is I don't have the delivery, and, I don't have them delivering and taking me anymore. It's like I'm just there. All of a sudden I'm there. I'll be on another planet. I'll be in a ship. Sometimes the ships are assembled by our minds. It's another. You have your mechanical ships, but we're going to create this for this episode. We're all going to gather. So that's what they told me about the facility where we were in the large meeting with 100,000 beings. They said, well, this is only a temporary facility we've created with our group mind, and when we leave, it's no longer going to be here. So that was interesting. I said, oh, that's interesting. But that ties in with the Dr. Michael Newton Institute information, where they go, they hypnotize people to go life between lives. And so apparently when in the dead zone or the other dimension, a lot of the buildings where they hold their classes, they just kind of create it. It's based on the architecture that the participants like. So they'll create a class, and it'll be, like the Coliseum or something. Or some people, some groups like to have their classes in gardens and stuff like that, beautiful gardens. So it seems like it's a manifestation of the group mind that creates these temporary environments. But once they break up their meeting or their class or whatever they're doing, it just goes, shoo, disappears. So I don't know if you've encountered anybody of those. So what are the strangest stories that you've heard from experiencers with your interviews?
The strangest story. I ran across an experiencer at the UFO Congress that had what looked like a grapefruit size tumor on her ankle area on her right leg, and she said that a praying mantis type being implanted some sort of organism into her leg and was going to harvest it later on. And I said, aren't you considering having that taken off? And she said, no, I wouldn't dare do that. And I thought that was pretty strange. Let's see. I ran into a couple of people that said that they'd been taken to the moon to facilities there, and let's see.
What's going on in the moon? Are you getting any stories about
there's a massive
what the facilities are like?
There's a massive mining operation going on the moon. I know that. I think I've been there too. I remember being there twice, as a matter of fact, most recently in 2011. And the main alien base is on the far side, almost right in the middle of the far side. I remember they have a big glass building with sides a mile on the side, and very transparent. And they do a lot of spacecraft assembly work in there. And there's a lot of valuable minerals on the moon. They mine both from the surface and underground. And there's massive caverns on the moon. That's been known for a long time. It just hasn't been talked about. I mean, you can prove it mathematically that the moon must be partially hollow. If you assume that the average density of the rocks is about the same as the density of the stuff the Apollo missions brought back, which it probably is, and you do calculations from the gravity on the mass and do calculations on the density based on the size and the mass, then you have to come to the conclusion that it's got to be at least 30 or 40% empty space. And the second piece of evidence is the moon rings like a bell for hours when something hits it. They found that out in the Apollo program, and it scared the hell out of them. They tried to cover it up. So the moon is it's increasingly looking like the moon is either a totally artificial body with a shell probably made of titanium that's just covered by dust right now, or it's a natural moon that's been mined for so long that it's partially hollow at this point in time.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, it may have been mined for millions of years. I mean, there's indications that aliens different types of aliens have occupied the moon for millions of years. There's ruins that are definitely millions of years old on both sides.
Right.
From Clementine and from the Lunar Orbiter series.
I've seen a lot of the pictures. I like that ship, and I don't know about that alien that was found in the ship, but it's an interesting story, and I identify with her. I think it's cool. You've seen that? It's supposed to be one of the later missions.
Apollo 18. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I've seen those. They're very interesting.
Yeah, that was very interesting. They said that Apollo 18 took off from Vandenberg. It must have woke a lot of people up to launch Saturn V from Vandenberg, but I guess I've been led to believe that Santa Maria was the closest town was much smaller at that time, so maybe they did.
Wow.
And they definitely knew there were a lot of aliens on the moon. They were warned off of doing any kind of continuous operations up there. That's why they never went back. And there may be it's possible that Apollo 13 was damaged by the aliens because they may have been carrying a nuclear warhead to the moon. I don't know if you heard about that, but
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to believe on that. Whether to believe the official story or believe the other story that says that Apollo 13 was carrying a nuclear warhead to the moon to detonate after the astronauts left in order to refine seismic models of the moon, which that sort of makes sense because Apollo 12 had crashed the the ascent stage of the lunar module into the moon. That's when they first found out that it rings for hours after
Rings.
it. The Apollo 11 and 12 seismometers were already in place, and then Apollo 13 could have been Apollo 13 crashed their third stage into the moon to make a bigger bang, and they may have been planning on following that up with a small nuke, which that makes perfect scientific sense to try to do bigger and bigger explosions to refine your models of the moon. They may have been thinking that when they had more seismometers on the moon, they could kind of see structures in the interior with a big enough blast to get waves going, seismic waves going.
Yeah. What do you think of Bill Tompkins' information? Have you looked into that? Remember, Bill Tompkins came out last year.
I think I've heard his information, but would refresh my memory, please. Bill Tompkins. He died 2017. He made it to the MUFON conference in July of 2017. Yeah. And then he died. He was like in his 90s, and he was like a kid in a candy store. He was telling me a story. He just released a book called Selected by Extraterrestrials, and he had been part of the extraterrestrial program since before World War II, or at the beginning of World War II. I forget the exact time frame. And so he was one of these people that had a photogenic memory, so he could see. His dad would take him to see the naval ships, and he would go back and he would make these little models, 3D models, and they were so accurate. They had, the stuff that most people don't recognize, the weaponry, and so his dad was displaying them in the front of his business window, and some of the military saw it and they said, "Holy shit, this is top secret stuff!" And his kid, who just walked through the ship for an afternoon, went back and did a 3D model. So anyway, he had this natural ability to design and engineer, so he became part of the program, and they designed the secret space program. They wasn't just one ship that they got to the moon. They had a whole program for bringing up modulated modules of housing and a bunch of ships, all kinds of designs, and taking hundreds of people, not just this little public program with 3 people. But when they got there and they landed around the rim of what was the name of the crater, were these other ships, and they basically, when they landed, it's like, oh shit, they were told to get out, don't come back. And, that was Neil Armstrong talking about Apollo 11. They were definitely followed to the moon by a UFO. Buzz Aldrin confirmed that on TV a few years back. And they even asked Houston whether it was their third stage, and they said, no, your third stage is 6,000 miles away. And this object, they said, was about, best guess was about 10 miles away, and they couldn't quite make out what its shape was, but some sort of UFO followed them to the moon. And then, according to witnesses and ham radio operators, they said that something landed on the moon right after they did. And I think that's part of the reason that they wanted to do the moonwalk early rather than resting first, like the plans called for. They wanted to get the hell out of there.
Oh. Well, these were already there, so they landed and they were surrounded by all these craft, and they were, there was a base there, and there was all this stuff there, and that's what the story is. So they were allowed to do their little rock gathering, but they weren't able to go past that. But, who knows? There's all these stories. Sash, what do you want to add?
Bob, Master Sergeant Bob has shown us pictures
Bob Dean
of
Bob Dean
of the mining operations.
He was a great guy. He was a great loss to the field as well.
I mean, it's a strip mine. I've seen strip mines just like that in New Mexico. It's just a large scale strip mines. And the other interesting thing is that the Russians are publicly landing a probe on the dark side of the moon this month. I think it is actually, or next month.
The Russians are now too. The Chinese already did it. So is it? The Chinese landed one recently.
They're trying to establish mineral claims on whatever's on the other side of the moon.
I don't think that's going to fly, but I guess I'll find that out in due course. But I don't think the aliens are going to permit that.
Oh, you should. We know that they've shot down one of the Mars probes that was armed just the way you said, with a nuclear discharge. This was aimed at Mars, and you can. We've got films of this missile coming up behind the probe and blowing it up, and that
Yeah, they may have shot down. They may have shot down the Russian Phobos 2 probe. If that's what you're talking about.
Yes, exactly. It's the Phobos 2.
Yeah, that definitely seems to follow. Phobos is supposed to be a major base for the Greys as well. A Russian astronomer said back at the last part of the 1800s that Phobos, its orbit was decaying a lot faster than it would if it were a solid body, and he said it was hollow, and it turns out that he was probably right. The pictures of Phobos from our recent probes indicate that it looks like it has entrances into the interior, and estimates of the mass indicate it's hollow as well. From spacecraft flybys.
Wow. So we have about 5 minutes left. What do you want to cover?
Any questions by the audience? Anybody calling in?
I don't think we have anybody that called in, but let me go over.
I'll tell you what. Imagine that you're now summing up, letting it all come together in some kind of direct, simple form. What have you learned from this study that you've been doing for the last couple of decades of this stuff?
Well, I guess I would say that I've learned that the alien abduction phenomenon is definitely real, and they're abducting or contacting at least thousands of people per day, flying thousands of sorties per day, taking people and taking samples of DNA and organs and blood and a lot of other stuff, and that they also implant and train a percentage of those experiencers, those contactees, to be a part of their agenda on Earth. There's not enough Greys to do what they want to do, so they use qualified humans as labor force to help them, and they do a lot of things from helping with the abductions, calming people down, to helping with medical procedures, to helping with tending the artificial limbs they use to reproduce themselves, just a bunch of stuff like that.
Wow.
And they're here to mine the Earth-Moon system and ensure the long-term survival of humanity and improve us as a species, and probably for several other reasons as well, like some of which Janet mentioned earlier. If I had to sum it all up, and they of course use very advanced technology, and there's not much beyond their capabilities. I've seen enough to indicate that they're probably 1 million years in advance of us, or something like that. They like to show off their capabilities once in a while. Like, for example, when I was at Dr. Leir's office for a measurement of a magnetic field and radio signals from my implant while it was still in my toe, he tried to get my X-ray out, and we found out that it was in a stack of X-rays. He finally found it. When he got it out, we found that the lettering on the outside of the envelope had been transferred to the developed film somehow. I mean, I don't know of any way, even in theory. I don't know of even any way, even in theory, you could do that. And they did it though. So there's not a whole lot beyond their capabilities, and they have a strange sense of humor, like that bull incident at the Skinwalker Ranch. I think it was an example of them showing off their capabilities as well. One thing I've learned is that we've reversed a lot of our technology. We've reverse engineered from them. Like the integrated circuit is basically gray technology, night vision, and a lot of other stuff. Of course, I mentioned. I have no doubt that we got from them, and so.
Are you writing a book, or do you have a book? Do you have a book? Do you have a website?
I'm writing a book that's a survival manual for Class 2 experiencers, and I should have that out this year sometime.
Oh, when you get your book, we'd love to read it. We'll have you back on again. And do you have a website? Do you have some way that
is alienevidenceinc.webs.com, and it's it says it has some of the pictures of the dyes and the papers on the implants that I've written. And
are you going to be any conferences where people can come get a scan? Are you going to be anywhere where people can come up and get a scan?
Yes, actually, I'm going to be at the UFO MegaCon conference in Laughlin, Nevada, from March 23rd to the 30th, and I'm going to be doing scans. And anybody who wants a scan should sign up in advance with one of the conference directors, Lori and Fenton. And I think it's going to be a major, one-of-a-kind conference. I think it's going to be a blast for everybody. Certainly lining up.
Okay, we're out of time. We're out of time, Steve. Thank you so much. Much love and blessings. Thank you, listeners. Aloha.
Thank you so much.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free, but there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver Eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to the banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This